Hey, as we know, life is full of surprises, both good and bad, and the day-to-day journey is full of unforeseen obstacles, and sometimes it's hard for us to see our way through. Beyond the normal mundane are where unscripted dreams live. Join us for thought-provoking discussions and interviews to help us navigate through the fog and create our own path. We are the Unscripted Dream Podcast, operating outside the margins to motivate and inspire our audience. So, people, once again, man, I'm gonna need y'all to click on that like button, subscribe, whichever one you prefer doing. Hopefully you do both, but at least get us on one of them, man. We'll appreciate that greatly. Thank you. Moving forward, man. So today, man, our topic today is really about a common statement. It's a think piece. But a lot of people use it, and a lot of people normally laugh about it because it's usually the butt at the end of a joke or a situation or circumstance that is not a surprise. It's just something that is typical per se. And that would be known as people gonna people. Okay. So when you ever hear somebody say people gonna be people, it's more so a universal truth because it's really saying that, it reflects a universal truth about human behavior if we want to be technical. So basically we're acknowledging regardless of how we wish people would act or change, they always will be true to their own nature in their environment or circumstance, however they were brought up. And they're going to behave in those ways consistently with their personality and beliefs. So that's the universal truth of people going to be people, and, sometimes you have to chalk it up to that. I'll give you a good example. You go to a family reunion and you already know that one side of the family or a specific character in the family, maybe it's your uncle, right? And he's well known for being a drunk. And, he's always the one where he gets drunk, he just start acting a fool. So what happens? Y'all have this family reunion picnic. And as expected, he gets drunk off his ASS and, he starts acting a fool. And that's when you hit the statement of people gonna be people. Just because it's not something that's out of the norm. He's only reacting to based off of how he has been in the past on a consistent basis. There's tons of examples, but before we get further into it, Marcus, what you got to say about people gonna be people, man? You hear me say this all the time.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about you throwing uncles under the bus like that, but I think
Oh yeah,
everybody got
because
an
you an
image
uncle.
in their head. But
I'm kidding.
I'm sure everybody knows somebody. But I think that as far as just understanding people, I guess more so what we're trying to communicate is that some people just like they are what they are. And
Yep.
it's one of these things where it's a matter of acceptance, but also understanding that like just live in reality and know that it's always going to be it's always somebody who messes it up for everybody. There's always going to be somebody who like acts in a particular way. And it's not really anything that we can really do about it to as far as controlling the other person, right? It's more
Right.
so what we can do to control ourselves and our environment versus understanding and trying to change other people. I think that's really the direction I come at it with is that some people just gonna do what they do. And yeah, the people what is it, Joe? People go people? I've never
Yep.
heard that until Joe said that was like a couple of years ago. And I was like, what? It's like, what does that mean? And then what I realized when Joe said that was that I would see this behavior, but I just never had a label for it till Joe actually brought that up. So if you're hearing people going people for the first time, you're not alone because I had no clue for the record.
Yeah. So it sounds like pretty much, man, when you come to terms of, people being people or doing typical stuff that you may not necessarily approve of, is it all really comes down to, like you said, embracing those imperfections. And then, by embracing them, you kind of have an acceptance there where you're like, okay, well, going forward, I would know how to deal with them if there is another time or if there's another chance or opportunity for this person to be in my circle or be in my area as far as like being at the same event as me. Like I would know how to deal with them going forward just because, you fool me once, fool me twice, but you ain't gonna give me a third time. So, you know, basically whenever you deal with this specific person or individual, you would know what to expect. I have those friends. I personally have friends and people I consider friends where I actually embrace their imperfections and I also know what not to do. Per se, like if I go out with one of my friends, I know not to go to a specific location just because I know how they're going to act. I know they're going to act a nut, or I actually know that, maybe their whole personality just changes like a light switch. So maybe they code switch, so to speak. So they code switch because they're in a certain situation. And that's not bad either. Sometimes you need friends that has a little bit of duality. So you can go from somewhere professional and then maybe afterwards y'all can pretty much what they people call lay your hair down and y'all can just debrief of your experience of whatever setting you might have been in. Maybe you have a good relationship with a coworker and that's what y'all do. Y'all go to work, y'all put on y'all work hats or however many hats you may wear or wear at work. And once it's over, like say like on a Friday evening or afternoon, you guys go to like a baseball game or a basketball game or some type of sporting event and you guys just let it all out. Y'all just like, hey man, I can't believe Karen, man. Karen really tried to come for me today, man. Like, you know, and then y'all really have like a real conversation. Like sometimes you need that. Do you have these type of experiences, Marcus, with people?
No, not recently, but that's because like it's because I'm just out here on the island. But yeah, I think you have to understand that's an EQ thing too.
Yeah.
Just really like emotional intelligence, just understanding certain people and knowing that you just can't, like certain people don't mix with certain places and you can't. That's one of the things that experienced fairly recently is that not everybody needs to be around everybody. Like I think, sometimes you try to blend friend groups. Like some people just want everybody to get along, but it's not realistic. I try to live in reality. And even though you might want everybody to get along, that's not how that works for everybody else. And it's like you said, Joe. I think you phrased it perfectly as far as embracing people's imperfections.
Imperfections. Yeah.
And that it just like certain people you can't bring around alcohol. If you do, that might just be you and that person because you can tolerate them because you know how it's going to be. But if you bring that person around
And there's
somebody
an
who
X factor.
doesn't like
Yeah.
it, yeah, it's one of those situations where like, why'd you do that? Like, why? Like, I think when you have a certain level of awareness, you're able to save other people from themselves.
Yep.
And like I said, like not everybody needs to hang out. Like I'm not trying to. There's people Joe will hang out with that I probably wouldn't want to hang out with, and vice versa. But Joe not going to invite me out with those people
No,
because
I
he know.
wouldn't. You'd be
So
out quick.
yeah, but that don't mean me and Joe not good. It's just those his people. I got my people that I wouldn't want to probably come around Joe because I know it wouldn't mesh well with what he got going on. But it's like it's just one of those things where like everybody don't have to be good, and some people are better like just separated. So it's just understand that, and I think if we take the time to really like process that and not get too hurt, and certain people don't want to hang out with certain people, like it's all right. Like that's why certain family, like this family too, like there's certain family don't get along. Don't invite them to the same event. Like if it's gonna be beef and it's gonna be a fight altercation, then just somebody needs to not show up, or y'all just do your own thing separately. But
And that all comes down to managing expectations, man. Like recognizing
yeah,
the reality of like how people are gonna act or respond. Like I said earlier, like you have to manage your expectations if you don't want to be disappointed. So whether that's you know, you don't invite a certain people because it's gonna be a some conflict there and potentially it might be a brawl for whatever reasons. I've been in those situations. Actually, recently I have been. I'm not going to speak on that, but yeah, man, that stuff happens where people show up and, they be like, oh, I'm not going to act a certain type of way. And, next thing you know, it just turns up and then it gets everybody involved, and people that didn't even have smoke with each other now have smoke with each other, all because of these two people couldn't be civilized in one setting. So sometimes it is better to keep stuff distant. Other times, I disagree, just because, like, given on the type of situation or what's there that's in play, sometimes you can reconcile. It just all really depends on how people are going to act and how you can keep certain parties distracted. Like, I've been to environments where there's people that I have no tolerance for. And I'm not saying from a violent perspective. It's just more so like, I don't even want to talk to you just because, you know, I came here with the mindset of enjoying this, but I know you're going to talk my ear off to the point where I can't look past you asking me a million and one questions or just being annoying. You know what I'm saying? So everyone has those limits, and some of those people really can get under your skin wherever you are. I don't care. We all have them, where people we just can't stand sometimes, or we only can be around them for like a short period of time. So
Yeah, that's the worst when you try to go out, you try to find you a nice little corner, a little pocket, chill.
yep.
Then the person you try to get away from, they come sit
Right
right
in your
next to you.
face. You're like, man, out of all the places you could have been, you got to sit right next to me, man.
You bro,
It's
it's chilling, man. Yeah,
every
yeah.
time.
That happens to me all the
It,
time.
it just works like that. And I don't understand for the life of me. Some people know that they get on your nerves and they do that just to mess with you. But
Yeah,
there's also people that genuinely have no idea that you just like get on their last nerve. And it's not that you don't have enough heart to tell them that they get on your last nerve, but sometimes some things are just not really necessary to bring up or mention.
yeah. So I'd like to maybe go into some of maybe another direction. Not
Let's
another
do it.
direction, but somewhere else. Right. But there was this quote. I saw it was last week or so. It was like maybe in the last couple of weeks. But the quote was, uh, "Deal with the world the way it is, not the way you wish it was." And I listened to that. I heard that. I said, that's how I need to keep it. I keep it like that. And I think that might have some people might hear that and they say, well, that's pretty pessimistic way to look at the world. And I like to remind you that I live in reality.
Right.
So I know it's all so
Logical.
yeah. So but think about it this way, right? Like there's a lot of things we do that we don't even think about. We actually make behaviors, we actually engage in behaviors based on how other people behave.
Yep.
For instance, why do you lock the doors on your car? Why do you lock the door to your house or your apartment? Because you know that it's somebody that's going to break in your car, and there's probably somebody they're going to steal your stuff. So
If they could.
yeah, so it's like it's one of these situations where it's like, why do you have surveillance? Why do the stores have surveillance? Like, why do you have people have cameras in their cars, like dash cams and things like that? Because you're factoring in. You think about, like, why do most people have a firearm? To protect themselves against nonsense. Most people have firearms for protection, but it's one of those things where we take precautions and we engage in behaviors every day because we factor in the element of like other human behavior and what we're capable of. So that's why we take those actions. So it's the same, just building off of what Joe was saying. It's that we are already doing these things and not processing that we're making behaviors unconsciously, maybe because of the behaviors of other people. So it's just really what I think at least we're trying to discuss is just understanding that this is just more so an evolution of things that we're already doing. It's just looking at it in a different way, in that you're just more in control of yourself, your environment, and just how those things influence you and how you just really just like I'm saying, just how you let those things affect you.
You know what, man? So I liked what you said at the beginning. Can you say that quote one more time? The
Deal
statement.
with the world, deal with the world the way it is, not the way you wish it was.
You know what? I love that statement just because I hear this a lot from my immediate social circle. I don't know who it came from, but when it dropped, it just circled around like crazy for me to the point where I can't keep it out of my head. The what you just said processes to me in a way where I think of this statement that's called meeting people where they are or meeting people where
Yeah,
they're at. And that's how I interpret those words because, there's a lot of situations where I used to be on one social economic status, and then it's crazy. 5 to 10 years later, you could be on a totally different status, like a different level of classification. In my
yeah,
case, this is true. And so, for example, some of the people I used to hang out with 10 years ago ain't on the same level of where I'm at now. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're higher or lower. It realistically, it doesn't matter. It's just that they're not on the same level. They're not in this, you're not on the same headspace as you were when that's what it is. Don't even look at it as a tier. That's just what it is. And s- so pretty much some of my friends, and actually this is crazy because yesterday I had a conversation with two of my buddies that I grew up with, I've known since first grade. And, you know, where that was a long time ago for us, man. So we pretty much almost known each other for almost 30 years. I'm not quite there, but I mean, if you want to add some tax onto it, yeah, we've known each other for almost 30 years. So pretty much, man, which is crazy to have a relationship that long with somebody anyways, especially in your early years, because so much happens as far as growth and development. So for you to still be able to be in connection with people that you met when you first started off in school, and then they seen
yeah.
you progress all the way to you're in adulthood and stuff like that. That's a heck of an accomplishment, honestly. Congrats to those guys. But in the same light, the conversations that we have are similar to the same conversations we had in high school. And that's the type of level of communication that we have. There's some adult conversation there. There's some maturity there amongst those conversations. But the basis of our conversation is right where we were best friends at, is what I'm trying to say. Versus if I have a conversation with Marcus, I met Marcus a little bit later on in my life. The basis on our conversation is totally different from the basis conversation I have with them. A lot of the things that Marcus and myself talk about is way different, way different than what I would talk about with them. And that's no knock to any of them. It's just that that's where my mind was back then. Some of the stuff that they brought up the other day, I was like, man, you know what I'm saying? Like nobody thinking about that crap, man. Like I'm too old for that mess. And we're cool enough where I could just say like, man, you still thinking about like that? Like that's over with versus, where I'm at now. But you can't do that with everybody. But I understand that I have some unique relationships with people. Absolutely. But at the same time, it is what I'm trying to say is if you go into having a conversation with somebody that you haven't seen in 10 plus years, the first thing you're going to gravitate to is where y'all left off at. And that doesn't necessarily mean that's bad or good. But it's where the maturity kicks in is you realizing that that person has seen some things and been through some stuff as well as yourself. And, when you think of the term people gonna be people, that's where you start to embrace those imperfections, man, and avoiding judgment because, you think of people gonna be people, man. And this is how I think of it sometimes, or in most cases is, it urges us to avoid like judgment ultimately and assumptions about others. Instead of being quick to criticize people and stuff like that, it's better to seek understanding and empathy. You haven't seen somebody in 10 plus years, I'm going to ask you like, hey, what you been up to for the past 10 years? I might not flat out say that because I think that's a boring question, but I'll start off with what I got going on. And then hopefully you will catch on and, you would be willing to share some of your information, which is cool. But I'm just trying to give you guys a quick tip of that, of how to play it cool rather than just going in for the jugular and thinking people ain't never change or don't change. There are some cases where people don't change, and they've been on the same stuff right where you left them. Absolutely. But you always want to give people the benefit of the doubt. You got any comments regarding that, man?
Yo, you're a lot nicer than me in some areas. And I'll give you that. Uh, but I guess, but before I say anything else, do you have any takeaways or tips for people before I?
Yeah, man. You know, I always say seek to understand. If you're going to seek anything, seek to understand. Don't seek to attack. Seek to understand before you attack. And that goes for everything. So, you don't want to attack something and you just weren't prepared for it to deliver. So just keep that in mind, man. You're not the biggest thing walking out here. So, you know, you might walk up on certain people and think that they doing bad and they probably doing way better than you. That's happened to me in many situations. So I'm just saying, don't judge a book by its character. Don't judge people about how they dress or how they carry themselves. That doesn't really necessarily define who they really are.
Yeah, and I just want to pull back to a logical place and go over some traits. Like
Yeah.
if you take a look at history, I'll be quick on this. If you take a look at history, you look at like why civilizations like failed through the course of time, right? And you look at some of the issues that we have today.
Yeah.
Let's draw attention to 5 human character traits. And you, as you're listening to this, or if you're watching this, you think to yourself, have you ever experienced any of these traits? Greed, envy, so jealousy, pride, fear, and anger. Those those are the common really characteristics of why civilizations fail. And I'm sure you can look at things wherever you're at and you can see any one of those, but we've all experienced a version of those probably in some way. Even if you're greedy and just eat too much food. Like it's always a way. There's a way. Like I haven't met not one person in my life who hasn't been angry. But just understand that as it's just us being people, there's gonna be people that you can actually use anger as a good thing. That's what I do. Like I'll be popping off on people. I just lock in to do some work, right? But it's always going to be people on both ends of the spectrum, right? So there's going to be that greedy person who takes advantage of people, or there's going to be that angry person who's scared and they fight somebody or they do something erratic that doesn't make sense and they end up hurting people, right? Or it's going to be somebody who's scared and they run away, or somebody who's scared and they burn somebody's house down, right? It's going to be, you're always going to have these people that, based on the human characteristics, the traits and the feelings that they have, you're going to have people that always fall into the spectrum on polar, like on both ends. So it's not that these undesirable things that we see are going away. That as long as there's people, these issues are always going to exist. And it's not like we're just alive now, but it's like the same stuff happened thousands of years ago. It just looked a little bit different. So as you go out, you interact with people, just understand that, have an understanding of yourself, but also have an understanding that people are going through, in general, are going through a range of emotions. And most people, because we don't know most people by default, because it's impossible, understand that people are going through a range of emotions, both good and bad, and they have traits, both good and bad, as we all do. And that's what we deal with every day. And it just is what it is. And it's about us taking control and understanding who we are and interacting with the world, understanding where the world is at, and not putting ourselves in situations where we get ourselves into some adverse circumstances because we fail to realize that people don't think or experience things the same way that we do. But I will close on that. And thanks for listening. Take care of yourself.
Gapstone.